Hello and welcome to the Penalty Box Perspective podcast. My name's Nathaniel and I'm joined once again by my good friend Matt. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm really good, Nathaniel. Thank you. Yeah, how are you? All good?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Excited again for the second week. It feels like we're getting into the meat and bones of the season now. The daily grind, as it were, with the games played at early hours every morning. But no, what are your thoughts on the second week of the NHL season?
Yeah, game's been coming thick and fast. We talked last week about storylines sort of starting to emerge, and I know there's a lot of things that we discussed last week about certain teams and the way they've been going, and then they've gone and done a complete 180 this week. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to diving into that.
Good stuff. Before we get into the sort of round of teams and games, a little bit of news to talk about. I think the first one really is how Brady Tkachuk's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks after having surgery after the slash to his finger. I think that's going to be a big loss for the Senators.
Yeah, completely. Fortunately, the Senators they're having a generational run from Shane Pinto at the moment to kind of keep things afloat. But yeah, that's a massive loss for the Sens. Obviously, Tkachuk, their captain. 6 to 8 weeks. That's quite a big, significant chunk of the season. But although I know there was concerns about it being a wrist injury, but with it being just I think it was a thumb or maybe a finger that he's had surgery on. So I think in the long term, I think that'll work out a lot better for him, as opposed to anything that was potentially going to impact his wrist. Yeah,
majority of the season without the Tkachuk brothers is maybe a little bit quieter than normal. The second bit of news I want to bring up, and I don't say we should deep dive it, but I think it is pertinent to address the situation. Obviously, the Hockey Canada scandal, one of the junior teams, and that unfortunate event there. Most of the players have obviously moved on and playing in other leagues at the moment, but one of the regular NHL players from before it, Carter Hart, the goaltender for what was the Flyers, obviously he's banned and can't play until the 1st of December, but he's signed with, of course, the Vegas Golden Knights for a 2 by $1.8 million contract. What are your thoughts on the sporting side of things for that?
From the sporting side of things, I think, he can't play until December. A bit of goaltending backup. It's it's a cheap, affordable contract. Vegas have managed to free up a bit of salary from the from the Pietrangelo contract. So they're just they're putting that into bringing in a bit of goaltending support. I think otherwise, I think it's been sort of pretty well covered. And Gary Bettman, the NHL commissioner, has said these teams know the rules. These teams know obviously what's happened, so any teams that are going to go out and sign any of these players, they need to be ready to answer questions. They need to be ready to answer, potentially any critical comments that people may have. Now, the only aspect of that I thought that was quite unfair was that when he had his PTO, his professional tryout, contract, I did think it was quite unfair that the first thing they did was they started asking coaches and players about it before we heard anything from the management upstairs at Vegas or the people, actually in charge of making that decision. I think the players themselves, have very little to do with this sort of incident and signing. Naturally, I'm sure it will have been cleared with the players beforehand, or I would certainly like to think so, that they've maybe got in a room and, said that, this is what we're looking at doing. Does anyone have any major objections? And but yeah, I thought it was a little bit disappointing that we didn't hear anything from sort of the GM or anything like that before it was, questions were being batted to the players and the coaches.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. And as tough as the situation is, I guess there's no sort of criminal charges brought. Obviously, there's no guilt legally there, so it's one of those situations where Vegas just viewing it as though it's just like a standard free agent. Obviously, there's a lot more nuances around it, and I would have said that they would have dealt with it better. But this is, I guess, Vegas. They're out there to win. They're highly competitive. They've always skirted on the edge of a bit of controversy around stuff like that. But I think on the sporting side, especially with, and we'll get into it, but obviously they've started the season red hot. and the weak area seems to be the goaltending. Carter Hart was a decent keeper for the Flyers, a sort of a weaker team. Is he going to come in and obviously had a fair bit of time off, but he's going to come in. He's going to be great, isn't he? And he's just going to be the final piece for the Golden Knights, and it's probably going to be very irritating.
Yeah, I think it's going to cause a whole load of issues if he comes in, plays well, and it leads to a substantive playoff run from the Golden Knights. But like we said, there wasn't any charges brought upon him, so there isn't anything technically, from a legal standpoint that can prevent him playing hockey. It's more purely from a moral standpoint about where teams stand. But Vegas they're a cutthroat organisation. They will do whatever it takes to win, and I don't think they're particularly bothered about how they get there. That's just my opinion. So yeah, they'll have to answer the bell and accept any questions that come their way, and they're going to have to live with that. But yeah,
they'll be fine with it themselves. But
yeah. Let's get into some on ice stuff, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. Now we are going to start again in the Atlantic Division. And starting with a team who, in first place, has had a great week. The Detroit Red Wings, who are 23rd in our power ranking, they are currently atop the Atlantic standings, moving up 4 spots with 10 points. Now, they played 3 games this week. They won every single one of them, and against them, top opposition. The Panthers, the Lightning, and the Oilers. All at home, but I think apart from the Lightning game, they've won each game fairly convincingly. So, what a surprise, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. I know we were talking last week about this was going to be a really difficult stretch for them, albeit they were at home. But they've answered that call, and they've played absolutely outstanding hockey. Dylan Larkin's been on fire. 3 goals and 5 assists. In the last week, puts him up to 11 points in 6 games for the season. Absolutely outstanding from him. He's been absolutely brilliant. I think especially, it was a close game against the Panthers. Again that scoreline maybe with a couple of empty netters at the end of the game maybe makes it look a little bit worse. But they played really, really well. Certainly against the Oilers. Obviously, Patrick Kane missed that game. Still performed great. And how about 7th round draft pick, Finney? What a performance for him. He's got 3 points on the season. Late round draft pick. Really, really nice to see these guys kind of forming NHL careers. And there's a lot of young guys on that team. Really impressing.
Yeah, Sandy and Pellica's been great.
Yeah,
for the Red Wings as well. And
yeah.
On the blue line there.
Yeah, they've got all their double barrel player names, haven't they? They've got Sandin Pelika, they've got Bernard Docker, they've got Bransig Nygaard. I bet their jersey manufacturing team are having an absolute nightmare this season.
Losing money on the shirt sales, but
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But no, they've been terrific.
Yeah, and they've had better goaltending as well. Gibson seemed to go out of his own head and put in a couple of decent-ish games. Talbot as well, being solid. But yeah, very pleasantly surprised by the Red Wings. And on paper, for next week, they've got 4 games, 3 away. But they're playing the Sabres, the Islanders, and 2 games against the Blues. So, I mean, this could be a start of a very good season for the Red Wings. But I think have to be conscious. They've had one good week. They could have a bad week next week. You never know.
Yeah, as we'll get to with some of these other teams. Just because you've started with a good week doesn't mean you're going to follow up with another good week. So, I think they'll be hoping to carry it on. Got quite a reasonable, certainly a much more reasonable run this week coming up than they had last week. But they'll just be hoping they can keep the train rolling.
Now, running into the second place, who remain in second place this week, the Montreal Canadiens, 15th in our power rankings. They sort of split the games this week. So they won in overtime against the Predators, lost against the Rangers in a very close game, and then beat the Sabres. So, all at home. Again, another home stand for the Canadiens, but I think it's been a very, very solid week for them. Again, confirming that they're a team not to be underestimated. Nick Suzuki's going on an absolute sort of tear. He's solid first-line captain play from him. They're 5-2 on the season with a +5. So what are your thoughts been on the Canadiens this week?
Yeah, I think easily one of the most watchable teams in the league. They're just playing absolute sort of electric hockey at the moment. All their young guys, doing absolutely terrific. Suzuki's looking great. Caulfield, Hudson, Demidov's now at 5 points in 7 games. So, as far as the race for the Calder goes, he's going to be looking pretty good for that. They've done absolutely terrific. It was a close loss against the Rangers in that 4-3 loss. They've just been fantastic so far. And I know everyone knew they were going to take a step this year. I know we had them ranked before the season as the 15th team in our power rankings, but 5-2-0 on the season. They're looking really, really good, really strong.
And what I was impressed by the Canadiens this week is that when they could be seen as a team that on their day they're smashing it, they could easily lose like the close games. I said lost against the Rangers, but the Predators they were 2-1 down. They score in the last 20 seconds of the game, and then in the last 6 seconds of overtime. So when it matters, when the pressure's fully on, they came out and performed. And maybe that was more on the Predators' defence rather than the Canadiens, but you can't score without shooting and being in the right place at the right time. So, I think a very solid week for the Canadiens. They got a lot of games out west coming up all the way. The Flames, Oilers, Canucks and Kraken all away. So, tough road trip against the division, which we'll go on to a bit later on, who I think struggling a little bit. So this could be another prime opportunity to kick on.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think one of the most interesting aspects will be how those young players, handle things mentally. If they do start to have a couple of games that maybe fall against them slightly, and seeing how they bounce back from that. I know, with certain young players, obviously because they're relatively inexperienced in the league, they kind of let it just wash over them and doesn't bother them too much. With other people, it might sort of bog them down a little more. So I think obviously each team runs into a slightly sort of sticky patch through the season. Just be really interesting to see how Montreal bounce back from that, when that time comes.
Yeah. So moving on, another non-mover in the division, and again, quite surprisingly, the Florida Panthers. And with the week that they've had to remain in third spot in that division, I think they'll be mopping their brow a little bit. But they've lost 3 out of their 4 games this week, and quite convincingly in most of these games as well. Losing against the Red Wings, the Devils and the Sabres. They did beat the Bruins last night. But rough week for the Florida Panthers, the current champions.
Yeah, they've had, I think it was a bit of an unexpected one for them, to be honest. I think, obviously, especially that Sabres game. But they had a really, really tough week. And I think some of those injuries are starting to catch up with Florida a little bit, on the ice itself. But, they were able to sort of round out the week with a 4-3 win against the Bruins in the Marchand return game. Speaking of Brad Marchand, I don't know if you saw it, but Marchand absolutely losing his rag against the Sabres with Rasmus Dahlin. Did you see that?
I've sort of read a little bit about it. I haven't deep dived into it really. Did he get fined or something like that for it?
I believe so. Yeah. No, he just absolutely lost his rag, was cross-checking him in the back of the head and ended up sort of kind of jumping on him whilst he was on the ground, and I think some fists were thrown. Darlene's helmet's come off. Marchand's been sent to the penalty box, and it's classic Marchand. He's picked up Darlene's helmet kind of without anyone looking and taken it over to the penalty box with him. Darlene's sort of skating around the ice looking for his helmet, and you can just see Marchand just like ripping out all like the padding from the inside of his helmet, and then he just throws it back on the ice. It was just just proper shithouse behaviour from Marchand. I think you could you could see Darlene, I think, for all the pro lip readers out there, I think he was saying something along the lines of like, who does that? Well, Brad Marchand does that. That's your answer. But yeah, he's having a good season as it is anyway. 8 points in 8 games. He's again, especially kind of age considered and everything, he's having a really good start. But yeah, it wouldn't be a Brad Marchand season without some tomfoolery and shenanigans, shall we say?
Yeah. I think with this Panthers team, they're showing the grit. Watching these games, they're great on the forecheck again. They're putting great amounts of pressure on. They're rough, they're physical, but they're just losing that. They don't seem to have that spark to be able to, that creativity, to essentially put the puck in the back of the net. I mean, Marchand's a great player for years and years and years, but he's not a top end goal scorer / playmaker. He's sort of more of a well rounded player, a lot like all of the Panthers. They're missing that star playmaker, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they are. I mean, yeah, you're right. Marchand he's like an elite second liner, isn't he? He's very good in that regard. But yeah, they are sort of missing that star power a little bit. Obviously, they're missing with Kachuk and Barkov, but they're grinding the way through it, as we all expected they would do. Bobrovsky's had he's sat above a 900 save percentage on the season. He's looking pretty good as well. 4 wins from 6 starts this season. So yeah, I think they'll feel quite lucky that they're still sat in third after quite a difficult week. But yeah, again, these things come in swings and roundabouts, don't they?
They do. And obviously they've had their road trip this past week, and obviously it's not gone well. Now they've got a home stand against the Penguins, Golden Knights and Ducks. Which is how some of these teams are playing. I guess it's no gimmies either, really, this coming up next week. So show us what you made of Panthers when things aren't quite going your way. Let's see if you can kick on, or whether this is going to be sort of the story of the season.
Yeah, agreed completely. With that, we'll move into the 4th place team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who again, bit of a tricky week. 2 of their 3 games go into overtime, as well as a regulation loss against the Devils. They're 3-1 on the season, with an overtime win against the Rangers, an overtime loss against the Kraken, and then losing to the Devils last night. Willie Nylander having a great start to the season. 13 points in 7 games. He's looking really sharp, certainly from a playmaking perspective. Maybe not getting as much as they would like from Austin Matthews, but again, 13 points in 7 from Nylander, 9 in 7 from Tavares, 8 in 7 from Nyes. They're all stepping up. They're all, their star players are contributing and looking good.
Yeah, I think the story of the Maple Leaf season at the moment is just a bit of that non-committedness. They're kind of like the anti-Panthers at the moment, where they're playing well. There's no doubt that they're a great team, and they're likely going to make the playoffs again, like they always do. But it came to a head, I think, when Stolarz actually came out and said that they thought that essentially the team's playing a bit soft in front of him, and like there was one. I forgot what game it was in actually. But the attacking player sort of charged the net, and yes, okay, I think there was a bit of a contact with a D-man, and the attacker player fell into Stolarz a little bit. But when somebody charges your keeper and knocks him in the net backwards, you expect to see a bit of the hugging and grappling as you might get at the end of at the end of the play. But all the players, I think it was Brandon Carlo, that was just sort of stood there looking off into the rafters, and you just like, where's this spark? Where's this at? So, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think they've reacted to it?
Yeah, I personally, for me, I wasn't a massive fan of the Stolarz sort of media comments. I mean, I think from a bit of what he was saying in terms of, the team playing soft in front of him, I think there was a few comments in there that sort of maybe directly referred to William Nylander. I don't think he had to say his name without us, figuring out who it was he was talking about. And I think that's something that's best saved for the dressing room. I think, especially in a market like Toronto, where there's such media scrutiny all the time. I think that coming out and saying that to the media, I think that's only going to cause sort of, potential rifts amongst the team. Now, I agree with you. If someone takes a run at your goalie and he ends up sort of backwards in the net and everything, there needs to be a bit of retaliation. I'm not saying that you need to go and absolutely, hammer the guy's face in, but someone needs to get a hold of that attacker and say, you're not doing that. That's not happening here. You don't take a run at our goalie. Next time that happens, I am going to knock your head off for it. And there just wasn't much of that at all. And I think, I think Stolarz, must have just been quite disappointed in the moment. But I just wasn't a massive fan of him coming out and doing it publicly. I think that's for the dressing room.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't even think it was prompted by anything really. It wasn't in response to
no, it wasn't.
I think he just did it off his own back, and I don't know whether maybe hyper-focusing on it a little bit, but obviously with Wall being out, Stolarz trying to state that claim and be a bigger voice in the team kind of stuff, and trying to drive and cause sort of motivation and inspiration to sort of create that bit of fight in the team, if that makes sense. And not in a negative sense, but make them more competitive and things like that. I think it might need to take a PR class really in that respect. But I think
just I think that's it. I think he's just trying to sort of establish himself as a bit of a leader in that dressing room. But you always feel like Toronto's on such a knife edge with kind of as far as like the feeling around the team goes. You just wouldn't want it to. You just don't want it to become a bigger issue, do you? You just want to. And maybe he's thought that saying it there and then he's nipping it in the bud. He's getting it sorted, but yeah, it just wasn't for me. But
they got 2 games against the Sabres and up against the Flames this week in Toronto. So I reckon they'll get back to winning ways this coming week, I think.
A couple of games. Flames having a rough time, Sabres having a rough time. I think they'll be hoping that they can put everything behind them and go on a nice little run and sort of climb up those standings.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll then go into the 5th team in the Atlantic Division, the Boston Bruins, who had a horrendous week. Probably bringing them back more to where we expected them to be. They were our 29th team in the power rankings, but they played 4 games this week and lost all 4. So they dropped from top of the division to 5th. They did play some great teams, to be fair. Golden Knights, Avalanche, the Utah Mammoth, and Florida Panthers. They were involved in quite a few of these games. They weren't blown out by any means, but they are 3-4 now on the season, a -2 plus-minus. And what are your thoughts on the Bruins?
Yeah, again, we talked, didn't we, last week about how they won some of those games potentially on the flip of a coin, and how on the other side potentially those can all fall against you, and that's kind of proven to be the case. They've been in all of these games. 1 goal loss against the Golden Knights, 1 goal loss against the Mammoth, 1 goal loss against the Panthers. Yes, they lost 4-1 against the Avalanche, but but they've been pretty much in every game they've played this season. It's just not quite gone for them this week. Slightly undisciplined for me at times, especially in that Vegas game. You don't want to leave yourself in a position against a team like Vegas where you're going to be short-handed at the back end of the 3rd period. I think that's setting yourself up. It's like tying one hand behind your back. It's just never going to lead to anything good. But yeah, they're doing all right. David Pasternak's having a good year. Zaka's doing pretty well as well. He's playing at a point per game at the moment as well. They're maybe having a little bit of a struggle in goal with particularly sort of Korpisalo. I'm sure there's a few goals he's let in that he'd like back, and Swayman as well. He's kind of started well, but maybe had a bit of a shakier week. But I think you're absolutely right in terms of, I think this week has kind of brought Boston back into the fold of where we thought they would be. They were 3-0 last week. I think that was maybe a little bit of an overshot of where they would be expected. I think this has kind of leveled them out a bit, kind of somewhere around the middle.
Yeah. And they got games coming up at sort of home against the Ducks, Avalanche and Islanders, with an away trip to Ottawa in the middle. So again, not an awful stretch of games for them. Again, I think they'll probably end up splitting that sort of set of games somehow. But I think they're in a better spot still than where they were last year. So all you can ask is progress for teams each year on year, and that's what they're doing really at the minute.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Not really anything more from myself on the Bruins really. Just see how they, see if they have another. They've gone 3-0, they've gone 0-4. They might have another. They might go 4-0 next week. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, moving on to the 6th team in the Atlantic Division. Would you believe it? The Buffalo Sabres. Okay, so I've actually summarised the Buffalo's 3-game home stretch. Is the game against the Senators. Okay. They beat the Senators 8-4. Okay, right. And then they went up against the Panthers. And you think, right, well, they're going to lose that game, aren't they? And then they shut the Panthers out. And they won 3-0. So I'm like, a little bit louder. Okay. And then they went away to Montreal and lost 4-2. And I'm like, much better. That's what we like to see. That's what I expect to see.
This was our first lesson this week in hockey receipts. I posted it up on our social media platforms at the PBP podcast. Just our little clip from last week where, we were talking, you mentioned that, the Panthers were going to absolutely run them over. I'd just mentioned that, there was we know that hockey has the potential to be a dumb sport at times. And that they would get, they'd just go and shut them out and win like 4-0 or something. So they ended up winning 3-0. So I was a goal out, but, just, this is just the way it can go. I mean, they've just had an absolutely red hot couple of games, against a slightly wounded Senators team, and then just casually beating the Stanley Cup champions at home, shutting them out. No biggie really. So strange. Excuse me. Good week from Alex Lyon. Even in the loss to Montreal, he still had a .900 save percentage, even with letting in 4. So, he's done really well there. And I think that's been sort of the corner pin of what they've managed to achieve. But how about Zach Benson? 6 assists this week. What a start for the young lad.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not about to pin the Buffalo's season on Benson at this point, but I think his return to the lineup in this week has obviously seen some positive production. I think last week we didn't have a single player with over 3 points in their first 3 games, and now obviously they've got several from this week. Obviously, predominantly because of the goals they scored against the Senators, but I'm still, even though I was wrong and I'm eating my words now from my prediction with the Panthers game, I still don't believe in this team. I think they had a weird couple of games, so they've done well. I still don't think they're going to do anything at all productive.
Oh no, they're garbage. Yeah, they're absolute garbage. They just had a good week.
Good. I'm glad. I'm feeling a bit vindicated that you think the same. But watch them in the playoffs and really make us look stupid, and we don't know what we're talking about.
Oh dear.
Don't need to dwell on it too much. We're going up against the Red Wings, 2 games against the Maple Leafs, and then up against the Blue Jackets. So yeah, we'll see. We'll talk about them next week.
Yeah. Moving into the Ottawa Senators then, and they were our 17th ranked team ahead of the season, 7th place in the division. Same amount of points as Buffalo, but with a -11 goal differential. So they've been struggling a bit defensively this year. Obviously, they had that 8-4 loss to the Sabres, shootout win against the Kraken, then a loss to the Islanders and an overtime loss against the Oilers. So relatively in those games, barring, the Sabres one, would you believe? But 7 games in, 7 goals and an assist from Shane Pinto. Guy's having an absolutely unreal year, and in a year where he's a free agent at the end of it, and there's a new contract on the table. What a time for Shane Pinto to to find this level of form.
Yeah, I picked him up in fantasy, hoping that he might keep this up, but obviously it remains to be seen. But they are such a weird team this year. All their games were just entertaining for a start, but just downright weird. I don't really know what to make of them. I think they're better than what they're showing, but also the results don't lie for themselves. They're on a -11 after 7 games. It's not ideal for them. But one thing I did want to shout out. I watched the game against the Kraken, and their alternative uniforms are the predominantly red with a bit of black and gold trim. Those unis are gorgeous.
Oh yeah, really, really good. We were treated as well to some really nice sort of alternate jerseys coming in this year. And yeah, the Senators ones are absolutely gorgeous. They look really, really good on the ice. They really pop. They look terrific. They look really good. I just think with the Senators, I agree with you. I think they're better than what they're showing. They just need to figure it out in goal. With 6 games in, Linus Ullmark's got 2 wins from 6 starts, an .854 save percentage. So he's, for someone like Linus Ullmark, who you're paying him what you paid him, you're expecting him to be sort of an elite goaltender, really, and they're not quite getting that from him. I know we said last week he needs to kind of figure that out a little bit, but they're just having a real tough run of it at the moment. Hopefully he'll be able to sort of figure out what how his season's going to go. They've got a little bit of a split, sort of. They've got a home game, then a road game, then a home game, then a road game. They've got the Flyers, Capitals, Bruins, and Blackhawks in their next few games. So, I'm sure they'll fancy themselves for some wins in there, and it'll be interesting to see. As those few games go, how Pinto carries on. Dylan Cousins is having a reasonable start to the season. Tim Stützle as well is doing okay. They'll just be hoping that they can sort of try and pick up some wins in the column.
Yeah, I think they'll be entertaining watch. I don't think. Yeah, we'll see how they do. But I just want to make a correction before we move on. Believe it or not, we actually give some Buffalo some more props. Even though we slate you, we actually give you... we had you higher in the running order than we should have done. They were actually in 7th place, and Ottawa in 6th place. The overtime loss to the Oilers gave them an extra point, so we should have flipped them around, but yeah, I think...
We'll let the Sabres have their moment in the sun, because there aren't going to be that many.
Now... The last team, obviously the 7th in our power rankings, but at 8th in the division at the moment, the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, they only played 2 games this week. It seems like an age since they've actually played a game, and they lost both, one in overtime. It's the Red Wings, and then lost in regular time against the Blue Jackets. So they're on a 1-3-2 record with a -5, but they're dead last. What are your thoughts on the Lightning?
Woof. Not a great start for the Lightning. Really struggling to figure it out. I don't know really. I don't know what it is that's necessarily causing it. That they don't have sort of massive injury issues at the moment. I know obviously Kucherov didn't play in the game against the Red Wings due to illness. But yeah, they're just not figuring it out at the moment. I'm not really sure why. They haven't got Vasilevsky's 0-4 in his starts this season. Again, talking about goaltending. He had a decent game against the Red Wings, but just wasn't able to get the win over the line. But they've got the Blackhawks and the Ducks coming up in their next couple of games, and then they've got the Golden Knights and also the Nashville Predators. So they've got those first 3 games all at home, and then they go away to Nashville. So they're going to have to start, picking some wins up. Hopefully not against the Blackhawks, for my own selfish sake. But they're going to have to start getting some wins. Otherwise, they could find themselves sort of cut adrift a little bit, and they're going to have to really sort of turn it on to, make that push for the playoffs. But yeah, very strange sort of circumstances in Tampa this year.
Yeah, and I think that they're not too far behind. Obviously, early starts of the season, they've been lucky in that teams have either gone streaky or dropped off. There's no sort of big gap. So again, I'm not overly concerned that the season's ruined and they're on the canvas, etc. But yeah, hopefully we'll see a better turnaround from them next week.
Yeah, agreed.
So we'll move into the Metro then, and remaining top of the Metro division, our sixth power ranked team, the Carolina Hurricanes. They play 3 games this week against the Ducks, Kings, and then the Golden Knights. 1-2 and lost against the Golden Knights. So again, still a great team. They're getting good points from a lot of different players. Seth Jarvis coming in with 3 goals and 2 assists this week. But they beat the Ducks 4-1, beat the Kings in overtime, and then lost quite badly to the Golden Knights. Any significant comments really about the Hurricanes, or are they just a solid team who's doing well and will continue to rack up wins?
I think exactly that. Just a little note on the sort of unbelievable run that Seth Jarvis had been on in terms of his game-winning goals. I think he had game-winning goals in 4 of the first 5 games of the season, or something to that effect. So yeah, he's having a really, really sort of clutch start to the season, but he's a very, very, very good player, and that's kind of what you want your star players to do. So yeah, they're just a fantastic team, continuing to type, and they got the Avalanche, the Stars, and the Golden Knights again coming up in their next 3. So yeah, tricky run.
Tough 3 games.
Really tough 3 games, especially being on the road to the Avalanche and the Stars, and I think this will be a good test for them to see sort of where they end up. Will they end up sort of being 7-2, or if they lost all of those, they'd be 5-4, or it'd be interesting to see where they land. But great start from the Hurricanes.
And very similarly in terms of the Capitals, who remain in second, same points total. They played 1 more game than the Hurricanes, and they've got a +8 instead of a +9, which is why they're in second place. But again, they came out the week with 2 wins and a loss. They beat my Wild quite easily. That was like an adult and child game. That one, they beat us 5-1. Before losing narrowly to the Canucks, and then beating the Kraken again quite handily 4-1. So I think my views on the Capitals is the same as the Hurricanes. They're the best 2 teams in this division last year. They rolled into this year just like they did last year, and they're just well put together and well coached teams. They don't necessarily have obviously Ovechkin excluded, they don't have great teams on paper, but they just seem to rack up the wins.
Yeah, agreed. They're getting some nice solid goaltending from Thompson and Lindgren this season as well. Doing really well. I know obviously in that loss to the Canucks there was a big talking point about the Wilson hit on Philip Heatle. Look, Tom Wilson is someone who's had made controversial physical plays throughout his entire career. I personally am of the opinion, I think, Tom Wilson is a supremely gifted player. Very, very talented. And that shows. He's got 10 points in 7 games on the season. But I sometimes think he maybe gets sort of caught... It's difficult, because I sometimes think he gets caught up in things that he doesn't need to be getting caught up in for a player of his quality. But equally, his sort of superpower is being able to play with that, with that aggression, with that physicality. And for me, the Heatle hit, the hit wasn't the actual problem for me. I didn't think it was a dirty hit. He didn't hit him in the head. He had his elbows kind of tucked into his, to his body. For me, it was the timing. It was late. It was really late. And I think that's why they said he wasn't going to take there wasn't going to be any sort of retrospective punishment after the game. Because the hit itself was pretty clean, and I would agree with that. It was just a really, really heavy hit. But yeah,
you see lining him up. You could see him like it. I agree with Wilson is a greatly talented player, and I think a lot of people may call him a bit like an idiot, but I think he knows what he's doing every time. Like, you don't see him make these plays often in games where they're winning. Like the Wild and the Kraken, he wasn't going to do it in that game. But the Canucks was a close game. Heatl's like playing really well at the minute, and he's seen it and he's lined it up and he's gone and he's doing this sort of like a textbook hit, but again just so late. But I knew he had full intention of doing that.
Oh yeah. I think, I don't know. Obviously, we weren't there. Would have been way more fun if we were. But I think Heatl has to. I don't know if he did or not, but I think he's got to get a shout from someone. Someone has to make, because it was a blindside hit as well, which is, I mean, there's nothing against that in the rule books anymore. I think it's seen as a little bit sort of unsavoury, shall we say? But nothing against the rules there. But I think someone's got to give him a shout. Someone's got to let him know that he's there. I don't know if they did or not. But yeah, it was a really unfortunate sort of positioning for Heatl at the time. Rough one. But unfortunately, when Wilson's on the ice, that's a risk you're always going to run.
Yeah. Shall we move on then to the third team in the Metro? Now, a team that's white hot at the moment, and I'm enjoying every minute. They've gone up one spot. They were fourth before the week started. The New Jersey Devils. Now, they were 10th in our power rankings, and they're currently now 5-1 on the season with a +7. But they had a tough week coming up. Tough week showing, and I think they've proved exactly what we were wanting them to prove. To beat the Panthers 3-1, beat the Oilers 5-3, and then went away and beat Toronto 5-2. Jack Hughes coming in and absolutely nailing it. 6 goals this week in 3 games. Fantastic from him. And maybe a blessing in disguise, Markstrom getting injured, because Allen has come in and has done great in every single game. So, what are your thoughts on the Devils? But I'm really hot on this team.
Yeah, completely agree. I think this shows you what the Devils can be when their star players are fit, firing, healthy. It shows you kind of what an offensive juggernaut, especially, they can be. Jesper Bratt has had a terrific start to the season. He's got 10 points in 6 games. Jack Hughes has really picked it up this week as well. And like you said, just absolutely rattling the goals in. Now, we've spoken, at length about them being sort of a bit of a fragile team. And I know they do have quite a few players sort of on injured reserve at the moment. Not necessarily key star players. Obviously, they'll be wanting Markstrom back ASAP. But yeah, when the star guys are fit and firing, they're a really, really good team, and they'll just be hoping that they can. They'll just be hoping that they can keep everything going and kind of keep everyone fit and see where they can take this. But yeah, really, really impressed with them. Yeah,
they've got a couple. Well, they're up against a Wild next, which I'm really nervous about, if I'm going to be honest.
Rightly so.
I'll probably a gimme against the Sharks, although I might eat my words again next week, keep the receipts, and then 2 games against the Avalanche. So put your money where your mouth is, the Devils. Keep this up, and I reckon you're in with a good shot. But
terrific start. Yeah. And from one team having a good week to another team having a terrific week, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Who'd have thought? Our 30th ranked team going into the season, 3 games played this week, 3 wins. Victory against the Kings 4-2, a shutout victory against the Sharks, and a 5-1 win against the Canucks. I don't think anyone thought they'd be 5-2-0 on the season. I'm sure all the Pittsburgh fans that were maybe hoping they were going to, tank for McKenna, don't know, they could be talking themselves out of that possibility, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, we had a separate, a standalone episode about the Penguins and what a rebuild could look like and things like that. And I don't think we touched upon how, if they're going to have a great season this year, I think they're going to shoot themselves in the foot more than anything. But yeah, great season for the Penguins so far, the +7. Outstanding goaltending for both Jarry and Silovs, who would have thought it. And then all their star players chipping in with points. So, I mean, you can't go wrong. You got to be really happy if you're a Pens fan in a minute.
Yeah, completely. I think there was a lot of concerns about what this season was going to look like, and they've answered it all and been terrific. So yeah, no complaints really from me. They've got a road trip coming up against the Panthers, and then some home games against the Blue Jackets and the Blues, all the Blues, and then they go away to the Philadelphia Flyers. So. McGrody should be activated off injured reserve, hopefully imminently. Hopefully getting him back in, getting Hayes back in as well. And if Malkin and Crosby and co can keep this going, then yeah, I think they're going to land themselves right in the middle of the NHL, which is exactly where they don't want to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fact that they've won 3 games this week and they're still 4th in the division is must be frustrating for them. But I think this division is very sort of a tale of two halves. The top of the bottom half, the Philadelphia Flyers, currently 5th, up 1 spot, currently sat on 7 points. They won 2 and lost 1 this week, so they're on a 3-2-1 record with a +2 +-, losing against the Jets and beating my Wild, and then a more substantial win against the Kraken 5-2. I don't really have much to say for the Flyers, really, other than play Vladar more than Urson, because Vladar is a much better goaltender than it appears Urson is at this stage. But yeah, and a good week for Owen Tippett with 4 goals.
Yeah. I mean, that Jets game was rough, wasn't it? Jets scoring 5 goals on 17 shots. Now, I know the Jets are a fantastic team offensively, but you can't let that happen. You can't let 5 goals going off of 17. You've got to defend a bit better than that. But yeah, good week for Owen Tippett. Trevor Zegras getting amongst the points there as well. He's got 5 assists in 6 games. I think they're kind of right around the middle, sort of kind of where we thought they would be, roughly. They go away to the Senators, and before a couple of home games against the Islanders and the Penguins. So, yeah, I think, I don't really have much more on them right now. I think they're just going to be a sort of a week-by-week case and seeing what happens. But yeah, completely agree. Start Vladar over Urson when possible.
Absolutely. I think the Flames could have done with Vladar still in Calgary, but anyway, we'll talk about the 6th team then. So, just a weird team, kind of like the Senators in a way, where they can't seem to get it going at home. The New York Rangers, we had them all the way up in 12th in our power rankings, but the 6th in their division with 7 points, having dropped 3 places. They lost in overtime against the Leafs. They beat the Habs away, and then they lost to my Wild at home again. So again, only 1 goal at home. I know you mentioned last week about maybe give up your tickets at Madison Square Gardens because you won't see the Rangers win a game there, and that's still continuing.
Yeah, just rough. One goal at the Garden this year. The curse of the Garden is alive and well, pretty much. Even in that 3-1 loss to the Wild, though, I mean, Shesterkin still having a .935 save percentage. Still good on the night. But yeah, I think they're maybe not quite where we thought they would be. I think it maybe just hasn't quite clicked for them yet, and they're being bailed out with some decent goaltending. But I think if you're Igor Shesterkin and Jonathan Quick as well to that extent, you just want these guys to start chipping in a bit more. Highest scorers Panarin with 7 points in 8 games. So, they don't have that elite scorer yet. But they could go on an absolute tear. They've got a home game against the Sharks, who I think have now lost 17 in a row. Carrying back into last season. So you're at Madison Square Garden, you're facing the Sharks. let's, if there was ever an opportunity to, to put some goals on the board, it'd be there. You watch it though, the Sharks will shut them out, and and that'll just be what happens because hockey's a dumb sport.
Hockey is a dumb sport, and we love it. But yeah, let's see. Do something, Rangers. Give us reasons to speak about you like the Tiffany franchise you think you are. But we're moving to 7th place then in the Metro Division. Sort of remaining in that spot is the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're 3-3 on the season. They lost against the Avalanche and then beat the Lightning, and more impressively, they went into Dallas and beat the Stars 5-1 last night. A team of promise, but not much delivery at this moment. I think obviously they had a rough start last week. So, what are your thoughts on the Blue Jackets?
6 games played, 3 wins, 3 losses. So, I think the definition of sort of mid right now. Impressive win against the Stars last night. To get that, that 5-1 victory, really, really good. Not sort of. They're a team of nearly. Marchenko and Voronkov have had a good start to the year. Boone Jenner's done well as well, and it's nice to see Fantilli kind of up there with 5 points in 6 games. And I think a lot of people from that particular draft class, so Fantilli, Leo Carlson, Connor Bedard, we're seeing them in their 3rd season now, and we're starting to see them become the players that we expected them to be. And I think that's just like a cautionary point on like people so keen to write off these sort of high draft prospects, early, and they're a bust, or they're not all that, or we said they were going to be generational, but they're not. Like, these guys are kids. Just give them a sec. Like, let them figure themselves out as players as well as like men. And I think Columbus are being well repaid for that. So I'm glad to see Fantilli, start the season pretty well. But yeah, kind of pretty middling from the rest of the team.
Yeah, good goaltending. It. We'll see how they get on. I mean, they're up against the Capitals and then the Penguins and Sabres. So I don't really know what much to say about the Blue Jackets. I'm kind of just waiting on them a little bit and seeing what's real and what's not.
Yeah, agreed.
But then we're going to the 8th place team in the Metro, who also had a good week, but due to the poor first week, the New York Schaefers, Islanders. They won every game this week. They beat the Oilers 4-2, the Senators 5-4 in that crazy game, and then beat the miserable Sharks 4-3. But as I may have precluded, rookie first round overall draft pick Matthew Schaefer coming in. He's at 7 points in 6 games. He's on a 0, a plus minus, which is pretty good for a rookie defenseman, first liner. He's playing on first line minutes. He's doing extremely, extremely well, and I think they can be happy with that pick, really.
Oh yeah, and the rest. Now, I believe, again, sort of stats-wise, prior to going into the Sharks game last night, if Matthew Schaefer had got a point in that game, that would have meant he's got a point in every single game this season. So a 6-point streak from a defenseman, which for a rookie defenseman would have tied the point streak set by Cale Makar, which is pretty good company to be in. Matthew Schaefer did get an assist last night on one of the goals against the Sharks. So yeah, 6-game point streak for Matthew Schaefer. Everyone fancies Ivan Demidov for that Calder, but I think he's going to have to fight Schaefer for it. Yeah, really, really terrific. We spoke in our draft coverage, but before the season started, about Schaefer's just such an easy kid to root for, and for a rookie defenseman to come in already, to have 7 points in 6 games, like what a player. Super happy for him. And the Islanders, I know they don't have much else to be sort of that cheery about at the moment. I know they've had a good week, and they're in a little bit of form. But I think certainly Schaefer he's going to be the crown jewel of that franchise for as long as they can keep him there.
Yeah, It's early yet, but very, very promising signs. It'd be remiss not to shout out Bo Horvat as well, scoring 5 goals this week, taking him to the top of obviously the scoring standings, obviously just ahead of Schaefer for them. They got a home game against the Red Wings before travelling to Philadelphia and then Boston, so sort of close to home games there for them. Again, we'll see. I said that this division's sort of two halves right now, and you got the sort of bottom 2 teams on a bit of a tear at the minute. But I do think the Islanders this is still another rebuilding year for them. But yeah,
agreed.
A good week for them.
Oh yeah, and just one more final note on Bo Horvat as well. Not something you see every day. When I was kind of watching through all the highlights and everything, to get a hat trick on a power play goal, a short-handed goal, and an empty net goal. Yeah, really. He's a guy who can do it all, and he was proving that. And yeah, so great week for him.
Doing the Horvat. No, let's not create a new term.
Let's move into the Pacific, quick,
move on. Other side of the country. So we'll start with obviously the top team in the NHL at the moment. Who'd have thought it? Second team in our power rankings, the Vegas Golden Knights. And they're 5-0-2 on the year, so they haven't lost in regulation yet. On the +10, scoring goals for fun against the Bruins, Flames, and Hurricanes. 6-5, 6-1, and 4-1. So obviously you got the Stone and Eichel getting points after points. Marner chipping in as well, who'd probably be a top scorer on the majority of the teams out there. But yeah, he's only third. And Dorofeyev with 7 goals as well. So,
yeah, crazy that
stop them?
Yeah, the NHL's leading goal scorer at the moment, or tied leading goal scorer, still has like the 4th most points on your team. Well, I think, sorry for cutting you off there as well. I think you said, can anyone stop him? Jeez, no. Yeah, I think Jack Eichel's already propelling himself into sort of Hart Trophy conversations. What a start for him. Mark Stone as well. Obviously, we know that Mark Stone is one toe stub away from LTIR. So providing that he can stay on it, but yeah, start. The start from
week now at the minute, Stone.
Well, there you go. Point proven. But
Dorofeyev,
Marner, just everyone crushing it, absolutely crushing it.
Yeah. I don't really want to talk about them. They're just a great team, and we'll see them in the postseason, and that's the end of that, really. Again, goaltender, we spoke about it at the top of the show, but Hill, I still don't trust Hill. I think that might bite him in the backside, but they got a nice trip to the East Coast this week to the Panthers, Lightning, and Hurricanes. I mean, they're going to win 2 of them at least, aren't they?
You'd have thought.
Yeah. So we'll move into the second team then in the Pacific, which is, believe it or not, at the moment, the Vancouver Canucks. Very good week, 3 wins. They beat the Stars 5-3 to start it off before beating your Blackhawks, in a shootout 3-2. And then beating the Capitals. And then before sort of having an off day against the Penguins. So plenty of goals, plenty of scores for the Canucks this week. They sat on a -1 though in second place. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, strange. Strange for them to be, to be sat there. Yeah, good week for them. We'll get to it when we talk about the Blackhawks, but absolute daylight robbery getting the shootout win there. Sorry, especially after some questionable refereeing. But yeah, really.
You would say that.
Oh, don't get me started. Terrific week for them. Especially beating the Stars, beating the Capitals. I don't think anyone would have expected a loss to come against the Penguins if they were going to lose against anyone. But terrific for them. They've got the Predators, Habs, Oilers, and Rangers coming up. So again, I think potentially could be like maybe like a 2-2. But we'll see. They've started well. They kind of got the start to the season that they were certainly, I think, hoping they would have after last year, and I think they'll just be wanting to try and keep it going as much as they can.
I think from early run into the season, I think they'll be feeling good about making the playoffs this year. I don't think the Pacific is as strong as we may have expected it to be heading into the season. Still early days, but yeah. We'll move on to the third team then, the Seattle Kraken, who remain in third place. Again, in third place, but with a -4 plus-minus. But they've won 3, lost 2, and lost 2 in overtime to start the year. So one of the teams with a pretty heavy workload. They beat the Leafs in overtime, but then lost in a shootout against the Senators and losing against the Flyers and Capitals. So perhaps looking to stay in third place this year. How do you feel about sort of the boring team of the NHL?
Yeah, like they're doing like 3, 2, and 2 is. I think this is maybe sort of highlighting the quality levels in this division. I think certainly, you got a third place team sat on a -4 goal differential with a 3, 2, and 2 record. Yeah, they're doing okay. I think their standings potentially flatter them a little bit. But yeah, they'll have been happy to get that overtime win against the Maple Leafs for sure, especially after that kind of shootout loss to the Senators as well. So, but yeah, they're doing okay. They're doing absolutely fine. I don't really have anything else to really say on the Kraken there. They've got the Jets, Oilers, and the Habs coming up in their next 3. So I think again that similarly to Boston, as we discussed, I think those results could potentially sort of level them out and bring them sort of back down to a state of normality.
How about this for an interesting fact? Okay, for the Seattle Kraken, they are the first team in the history of the 25-26 NHL season to start 3 goaltenders.
See, that's what you come to the penalty box perspective for. You come here for groundbreaking statistics and factoids. They've. I can't believe I saw Matt Murray suiting up for an NHL game in 2025. That was not on my bingo card. I think that's I think that's the level of excitement that the Kraken are generating at the moment.
Now, will they, won't they team, the Anaheim Ducks in fourth, 7 points, 3-2-1 record, 22nd in our power rankings. They lost who they should have lost against, won who they should have won against, and played a tight game against who do you expect them to play a tight game against. So, by what I mean by that is they lost against the Hurricanes, they beat the Predators, and they lost in overtime to your Blackhawks, who are doing well this year. So, bit of a mixed bag week for them, but exactly where we expect them to be, I feel. Yeah,
I completely agree. For me, again, nice to see Leo Carlsson up there with 7 points in 6 games, and we talked last week about being glad that McTavish got that contract issue sorted, because he's a really, really strong player and scored an absolute beauty of a goal against the Blackhawks. Really, really nice finish. Yeah, I really like the Ducks. As a team, I think they're going about things the right way. I think they've got the experience behind the bench in Joel Quenneville. Thoughts on that? Whatever you will. He's still a multi-Stanley Cup winning coach, and but I think you're absolutely right. Lost the game you'd expect him to lose, won the game you'd expect him to win, and then played a tight one against the Blackhawks. Really enjoying watching their youngsters. I think Gauthier, really like Seneca. I think he's going to be a terrific player, proper power forward. They're getting some decent goaltending from Dostal as well. So I think all their arrows pointing in the right direction. But right now they're exactly where I would expect the Ducks to be.
Yeah. Absolutely, and we'll get onto them shortly, but we sort of contrasted the Ducks against the Sharks, and I think they're just a way better team with way better prospects.
100%.
Right, we'll move into the fifth team then. The fourth power ranked team, the Edmonton Oilers, who have had a pretty shocking week. Kind of out of the blue as well. They lost the Islanders, Devils and Red Wings before struggling to beat the Senators in overtime. What's going on in Edmonton?
I don't know what's going on with Edmonton. What's going on with Evan Bouchard? Gets the secures the bag. Just especially against the Islanders, that was a rough game for him. Really struggling since he's signed that contract. McDavid getting his first on the season last night. Still got 8 points in 7 games. So he's still doing fine. But yeah, I don't know if it's goaltending. I don't know if the team are just tired from from their back-to-back cup final runs. I don't know if maybe it's just all caught up with them a little bit, but beats me. But just a rough week for them, I think.
Yeah, it was a road trip. All 4 games were on the road, so you kind of have to give them that. And they weren't like blown out in any of the games. They just weren't winning them. Will they come round and come good? I think they do have too much quality, providing they don't shoot themselves in the foot more often than not. So I expect them to bounce back, but not the start of the season you would want, really. I don't know what you're expecting.
Yeah, completely. I think they'll pick it up, and like you said, it's not like they haven't been out there getting smoked in every single game. So they're they're doing pretty good, and kind of exactly. Well, though it's that coin toss, isn't it? It's that coin toss that we discussed before, and going into next week, Habs, Kraken, Canucks, Mammoth. They could potentially put together a little bit of a winning run there. We'll see.
So next up is the LA Kings, who are again not having the start of the season they would want to have. They're 2-3-2 at the moment on a -6 plus minus. They lost against the Penguins to start out the week before then losing in overtime to the Hurricanes. Probably that was a close, better game. Not too mad that they lost that one. But I think what's pivotal here is I now think the Kings will make the playoffs, according to what I said last week, because they beat the Blues in quite a boring overtime game win. Oh dear. I can't be bothered tracking this all year now just off of that one game. But
no, you've committed to it now. You've committed to it. You've got to do it.
The Kings will get into the playoffs as a wildcard team. That's my prediction from now. But yeah, again, a bit uninspiring, the Kings. They're not that great a watch either.
No, and it was a real shame to see Kopitar go on injured reserve. Not how he would have wanted his kind of swan song season to start. They'll have been frustrated to blow that 2-goal lead to the Penguins as well. But this is what we're you look at the likes of Adrian Kempe and Quinton Byfield and guys like that. Like this is your opportunity now. Like Kopitar's passing the torch to the next guys, and they've got to go and take it. And they haven't started sort of, abysmally. Kempe's got 9 points in 7 games. Byfield's got 6 points in 7 games. So, they're getting a little bit of production, but yeah, they're a little bit uninspiring at the moment. And they're just going to have to find a way of kind of trying to put a little bit of fire back into their season. They do go on a road trip to try and do that. They start in Dallas tomorrow night. And then they've got the Predators, the Blackhawks, and the Sharks. So, in theory, potentially they could maybe get some wins there, and start to turn the corner a little bit. But a little bit flat, I think, in LA at the moment.
Yeah. Now, I don't propose we spend too much time on these next 2 teams. I think we'll join them in together, really. They both sat on 2 points. The Sharks on top purely because they got a -13 plus minus as opposed to the -15 plus minus. But the Sharks and the Flames are probably going to be propping up the league this year. They can't. They lost every single game this week, and most of the time they weren't even close. So I don't know what you want to particularly point out about these two teams, but they're not really. Nothing about them are inspiring me at all.
No, I think one team we expected to be bad in the as far as the Sharks go, and one team who we didn't maybe expect to be bad in the Flames, but they're both just stinking out the league at the moment. Really, really rough. The Sharks, poor. Really, really poor. And the Flames as well, just not looking good for them. Can certainly see someone like Nazem Kadri. Obviously, I know he's been around the league a little bit in terms of teams. I could, if this carries on, I could certainly see Nazem Kadri being someone when the trade deadline comes, maybe looking at getting him over to a contender. I can't imagine that's the kind of hockey he's going to be, wanting to play, and I'm sure he'd much rather go and do it somewhere else. But yeah, rough start to the season for Dustin Wolf as well. But I'm sure it's like we said last week, though. You can have a franchise stud goalie, and they can do everything they can, kind of similar to Shesterkin at the Rangers. But if your actual skaters aren't out there getting it done, then you're never going to win the games. And yes, it's just been rough for them, both teams. But I think the Sharks are as kind of garbage as we expected them to be. But yeah, a bit of a surprise on the Flames. But who knows? Maybe Gavin McKenna looks good in red.
Yeah, I'll be excited. McKenna and Coronato. I think Coronato recently signed a deal, so he isn't going to be going anywhere. And Rasmus Anderson's probably going to get traded as well. I think, I can't see the Flames turning it around, and the Sharks are showing absolutely nothing to say that they're in the process of turning it around either. Their youngsters are not doing it, and their oldies are not doing it either. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. We'll move from the bottom of quite a poor division into a much more competitive division, I think.
Yeah. Starting off with, again, my Stanley Cup contenders. I'll keep saying that every week for as long as the Avalanche are performing well. They won 2 and then lost 1 in overtime. They beat the Blue Jackets and the Bruins 4-1 in both of those games. They sat on 12 points. They haven't lost a game in regulation yet. They lost last night against the Mammoth in overtime. Losses will happen, so I'm not too stressed about that. Wedgwood is being a fantastic keeper this year. He's doing great. Everyone's doing great. I don't know how much more there is to really say other than they're a solid team.
Yeah, they've got a record that matches the Vegas Golden Knights at the moment. They're not necessarily playing with the same blowout flair that the Knights are doing points wise, but they're going out there, they're getting it done. Really, really professional. Looking great. Scott Wedgwood has been a little bit of a revelation actually this year. But really, really, really good. They've got a couple of games against the Devils coming up at the back end of this next week, as well as the Carolina Hurricanes and the Boston Bruins. So again, quite a little tricky run for them. But those games against the Devils, I think they've got back-to-back games against them on the 26th and the 28th. I think that'll be a really good doubleheader. That'll be one to watch, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving up to second place, from fourth is the Winnipeg Jets. Again, won every game this week against some a lot weaker opposition, the Flyers, the Predators and the Flames. Never in doubt, really. They've just had a nice, steady, easy week, easing the way back into sort of solid play, really. Yeah,
that's always a good sign when you win. You win those games that you're expected to win. Sounds so straightforward, but there's a couple of banana skins in there that they're able to avoid. Mark Scheifele's had a terrific start to the season. He's up there tied for leading in goals with 7 on the year. Yeah, terrific start from him. Kyle Connor, again, 9 points in 6 games fresh off of his contract. And Jonathan Toews getting his first goal as a Winnipeg Jet. Again, always pains me a little bit to see him in that Jets uniform, but I'm just so happy for the guy to be coming back, to have 4 points in 6 games. I don't know how many games Toews is going to play this season. I pray for him that his body holds up and that he does everything that he wants to do, because he deserves that, for how hard he's worked in getting himself back into the NHL, and to do it with his hometown team as well will mean a lot to him, I'm sure. But yeah, it was a nice, gorgeous little classic Jonathan Toews little tip in front of the goal. Beautiful.
Yeah. I think he's doing well, but he's not playing. He's not sort of for 2 lines really in the minute. He's not putting as much time on ice as he used to. So
no.
hopefully,
he doesn't need to, does he? He doesn't need to. No. He's coming in playing a depth role, which is perfect for him. And you think, if he's getting in those third line matchups, that's where you're going to get the best out of him this year. No use at this stage in his career putting him up on the top line, expecting him to go, toe to toe with the cream of the crop of the league. Have him in that depth role and let him dominate.
Yeah. Anything more to say on the Jets, or shall we?
No, we'll move into the Mammoth. I think the Mammoths of Utah.
Mammoths of Utah with a great week. They won 4 games this week. Again, making it known that they're here to stay and that they're playing good hockey. They started off with 2 obviously easy wins against the Flames and the Sharks. And it's like, right, well, put your money where your mouth is. They then beat the Bruins. It's like 3-2. Okay, that's kind of a close game. Okay, well, we're going to lose against the Avalanche, aren't you? Naturally. Every team will lose 1 game a week, etc. But no, they beat the Avalanche in overtime 4-3. So they're currently sat at 5-2 as well. Again, what to say about the Mammoth? They did all games played at home. Yeah.
Yeah, what a week for Nick Schmaltz. What a week. 8 points in 4 games. Got a hat-trick as well. Terrific week for the guy. The Mammoth just don't seem to be going away anytime soon. We had them as our kind of 19th ranked team in our power rankings before the year, so I think we expected them to be sort of somewhere around the middle. But yeah, I mean, they're having a great goaltending run from Vemelka at the moment. He's doing terrific. They've been fantastic. Really, really good.
Good. A lot of games in the division away from home this week, so this again, it's do well here. You can put yourself in a really good position. They're going to St. Louis, then to the Wild, then to the Jets, before going a bit further out the way to the Oilers. So again, we'll check in next week. If they do well, then they're well on their path. But it's going to be a tough division, this one.
Yeah, super competitive, and they've got a real opportunity to the Mammoth this week to really carve some headway into that division, I think.
Yeah. Now, surprise candidates here. Your Chicago Blackhawks coming in at 4th after a very good week as well. So I'll let you lead off on your Blackhawks.
Yeah, good week. Great week for them. Absolutely dog walked the St. Louis Blues on national television with an 8-3 win. And I think it's you don't want to undersell the importance of that. And I do get kind of quite passionate about this. But I think I was a bit frustrated that, the national consensus of the Blackhawks was that they're going to be bottom of the league, they're going to be terrible, they've got nothing going on, yada, yada, yada. And then they go on national television against the St. Louis Blues and absolutely dominate them. With all the young guys coming in and putting up their points and looking really, really sharp. I was really, really happy with that result. Shootout loss to the Canucks. That game's tied 2-2, and Tyler Bertuzzi banks a puck in off of the goaltender, off of Kevin Lankinen, and that gets blown up for goaltender interference somehow. Unsure.
Yeah.
Not one to blame refs, but I think that was an absolutely ridiculous call. And for once, there's a lot of fans sort of nationwide in the US and Canada who don't like the Blackhawks, and I understand why. But the general consensus on social media was, what on earth is that decision? That's absolutely appalling. Tyler Bertuzzi after the game said he didn't want to speak about it because if he did, he was going to get fined. That was rough. And then to lose in the shootout, I mean, the shootout is the epitome of a coin toss. And then a really nice win in overtime against the Ducks as well. Connor Bedard making a great play to set up Ryan Donato for the overtime winner. But yeah, more great goaltending from Spencer Knight. Young guys doing what they need to do. Frank Nazar celebrating goals after getting jumped by defensemen. What were what were your thoughts on the Hawks?
They're displaying great aura at the moment. That loss against the Canucks is a type of game that can really push a team on. So you lost a battle, but it may help you win the war. I think we've seen this team turn the corners to be no longer the perennial underachievers in the last sort of decade or so to pushing on. And we talked with Mario Tirabassi last week about the Blackhawks, about their young prospects and how well they're doing. And I think the proof's in the pudding that you're doing well. Like, Nazar is doing great. Absolutely love the fact that he scores a goal, gets jumped by neighbours, and then just gets up and celebrates while the team fights. I think it's just great vibes. I'm not sure exactly where your season's going to end up, but there's definitely been a shift.
Yeah,
this year,
100%, 100%. And I've got no clue where it's going to finish, but I'm just trying to enjoy it at the moment whilst whilst they're riding a pretty decent sort of run of form. I'm just couldn't be happier with how things are going at the moment. I think Jeff Blashill's doing a terrific job, and I know you touched on it there, but we spoke to Mario Tirabassi from the CHGO Blackhawks podcast, last Friday. Really, really interesting conversation. Would really encourage anyone to go and listen to that. An opportunity to speak to someone who has media access to the team and speaks with the players and the coaches and everything was such an amazing opportunity for us. So, please go back and listen to that and go show Mario some love.
Yeah, absolutely. The vibes are on the up there. Now, you're sitting above my team, the Minnesota Wild, who... I'm nervous, mate, not going to lie. We started off the week with a loss to the Capitals. Awful game. Even from the first puck drop, we knew we were going to lose that game. We're just trying to do damage limitation. We then frustratingly lost in overtime to the Flyers before then coming back and winning against the Rangers. So I'm nervous because we've shown that we can score goals and be creative, but that we're just a bit fragile. And with how good this division's going to be, that we might again be the perennial either wildcard team losing the first round or may not even get there this year based on what we've seen.
Yeah.
See, goaltending Gustafsson's had a few good games, but yeah.
It's early doors, isn't it? It's early doors, but it wasn't. I mean, we talked about the vibes being up in Chicago on my end. I think the vibes a little bit down this week on your end. Tricky. They'll be hoping to bounce back. On the plus side, you're getting that productivity from Kaprizov. You're getting the productivity from Matt Boldy. The big guys are stepping up, and that's what you want to see, especially Kaprizov. Guy can't go and take $17 million and then sit around and twiddle his thumbs. I mean, you've got the Devils, the Mammoth, the Sharks, and the Jets coming up. Couple of interdivisional games there against the Mammoth and the Jets. It's going to be a tricky away trip to the Devils. I think if you can get maybe 5 points from those 4 games, I think that would get things back on the right path. But I don't know if it's a natural sort of pessimism that we have as sports fans. I'm not quite as concerned as you are. I think that Capitals game, you get those every now and then. You sometimes you just have a night which is just stinky, and it's just it's not going to happen from the minute the puck drops. But I think they'll be okay. I think they'll turn it around a little bit. They've got some good goaltending. They're getting the productivity where they need to. They just need to be a little bit more clutch when when it comes to those big moments.
Yeah. We're suffering from a few injuries as well. I'm not about to sit here and talk in depth about our fourth line. But we've had several injuries. Bogosian, Rossi was out for a game. Nico Sturm's out for a while, and Zuccarella's obviously out as well. So a lot of our top sort of attacking players and a couple of solid bottom liners, both defence and attack, are out injured at the minute. Always seems to be the case with the Wild. We've always got injuries managing it. But yeah, I'm going to go with 4 points from the 4 games. I think I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, I think that's all right.
Yeah. But we'll move on then into the 6th place team in the division, the St. Louis Blues, who obviously remain in that position. They've had, again, round robin. They've won against the Stars, a 3-1. Obviously, they lost against your Blackhawks and lost against the Kings in overtime. So, bit of a mixed bag this week against some solid opposition. Probably the flip of, I'd have had them probably beating the Blackhawks and losing against the Stars personally, but that's not how it's gone for them.
Yeah, a nice little bit of resilience, to beat the Stars after getting pumped by the Blackhawks. So I don't know how many 8-3 wins they're going to get this season, so I'm just taking them when I can. And then, tight game against the Kings to lose in overtime. We had them 16th in our power rankings, which is smack bang in the middle. And I think that's where the St. Louis Blues will be. And I think you have them in your, you have them losing out to the Kings in that final wildcard spot, which would land the St. Louis Blues somewhere bang around the middle. So I think they're kind of where they belong, and they're where they should be. Jim Montgomery unfortunately can't put on a pair of skates and play on the ice. He can only try and coach them from behind the bench, and they just need a little bit more from his players, I think.
Yeah, it's like he shouts from the bench and they play better for a little bit, but then he lasts for a certain time and then it's on a recharge and then he shouts at them again and then they do better again for a little bit and then they hold off for a little bit, and it's kind of one of those. They're not consistent, is I think what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
but they've got a mixed bag coming up. They're home against the Mammoth before a road trip to Detroit and Pittsburgh before then playing Detroit again at home. So we'll see, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Shall we move into our big shock of the week?
Yeah, a big drop. The Dallas Stars lost every game this week, and they weren't really even close in any of the games. So, what are your thoughts on Dallas this week?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke last week. I mean, this is lesson number 2 in sports podcasting. Like, Jesus, last week, they were 3-0. We were saying, they picked up exactly where they were in the preseason. This team could just go out and absolutely dominate teams up and down the league, and then they go and lose their next 3 games. Like, this is tough, man. Like I wish I had a crystal ball. But yeah, it's really tough. A bit of an off week for them. I don't think it's going to sort of deter them too much. I'm sure there'll be some rockets fired up various people this week, and they've got to get back on the board and back on the horse. The Kings, Hurricanes, Predators, Capitals this week coming up. I think they've got some good opportunities to get some wins back there. Couple of ugly losses this week, and they'll be hoping to kind of shoot their way back up. But it's like we say with the Central all the time, it's a tough division. You've got the Jets, you've got the Avalanche. The Mammoth have had I think probably a better than expected start. The Blackhawks have had a better than expected start. They just can't afford to go on too many sort of losing skids. Otherwise, they could find themselves in a bit of bother.
Yeah. I mean, as much as we were pumping up last week and the thing before, I know in the off-season I was saying that they made a rash decision and get rid of Pete Dubois and bring in a new coach, hoping to get them over the line. I was dubious about whether that would work or not, so I'm not going to make any assessments on that now, but I'm just going to lay that down and see what manifests from it, really.
Yeah, good shout. Very good shout.
Yeah. But then I guess that leaves us with the very last team that we're going to talk about today, the 8th placed Nashville Predators, who obviously had a good week last week and then come into this week and again have lost every single game, losing to Montreal in overtime, but then to the Jets and to the Ducks. I think this is more what we're going to be sort of expected from the Predators. Again, we keep repeating it, but this is a very, very good division, and you have to be special to win games, and then just not winning games.
Yeah, wasn't the easiest, 3-game stretch from this week. Obviously Montreal are playing fantastic at the moment. The Jets are the Jets. 5-2 loss against the Ducks. I think they'll probably be a little disappointed with, but. Yeah, 2-2 on the season, 6 points. Yeah, they were our 27th ranked team going into the season. I think this is probably more what we can expect from the Predators. I think. Not really much more to add on them. Really, they're kind of right round the bottom of the division. They've got a home stretch coming up: the Canucks, the Kings, the Stars, and the Lightning. So. It's a little bit of a weird one coming up this week. Obviously, they've got the Stars and the Lightning, both coming off sort of poor weeks. It could either be an opportunity there for them to, kick someone while they're down, or alternatively, those teams will want to come back out firing, and they could end up on the end of a walloping or two. It's a little bit of a. It'll be an interesting week. I'm looking forward to coming back to Nashville this time next week, seeing sort of how those games have gone, and seeing sort of where they sit. But I think Nashville are kind of right where we expected them at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're going to be the victims, even if they could still improve their hockey this year and play better, but still find themselves way out of contention in the playoffs, and that's just unfortunately the way it goes. I won't say there necessarily will be a bad team as opposed to some other teams in the league, but it's just how it goes. But yeah, interested to see next week how they get on.
Completely. But no, that's all 32 teams covered in week 2. A little bit of closing bits, just some little stats there. Top point scorer in the league after 2 weeks, Jack Eichel. Not even close, really, either. He's on 16 points for the year. Done really, really well to start the year. Top goal scorers, that's split 3 ways at the moment between Dorofeyev, Scheifele and Pinto, all on 7. And then the wouldn't be the penalty box perspective without looking at our penalty minutes update. That's currently tied at the top between Lindgren of the Sharks and Louis Crevier of the Chicago Blackhawks, the monster defenseman. Going out there, dropping the gloves and putting himself about. In terms of these kind of stats at the moment, any surprises for you?
Well, I mean, it's got to be Pinto and Dorofeyev scorers-wise, I think. I don't think we'd expected them to be quite at the top, but once upon a time, it's still early in the season for goal scorers. Minutes as well, penalty minutes, of Crevier. What a beast he is, and no surprise that someone on the Sharks is up there either. That they got to try finish at top at something. So yeah. Well, they get our little award for the week. I completely agree. Massive surprise on Dorofeyev and Pinto, but as we saw with someone like Nick Schmaltz this week, a guy could go out there and have a monster week and propel themselves up those standings. But
Yeah, I'm very intrigued with the start of this season already. I think it's been a really good start, and there's been a lot of up and downs with teams already, sort of through 6-7 games.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to. We'll see yet another week of NHL hockey. But yeah, you can expect another episode from us on Friday, another mini pod. So keep your ears tuned for that. But do you want to give any shout outs to our socials again, Matt, before we start?
Yeah, I'll sign us out. So as always, you can find us on X and Instagram at the PBP Podcast. You can also get in contact with us on Gmail at penaltyboxperspective@gmail.com if you want to send us any suggestions, feedback, or anything, any comments about the show. In addition, as well, if you fancy giving us a 5-star review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it really helps kind of propel us into the algorithm. Obviously, hockey doesn't get too much coverage in the UK, and that's what we're looking at trying to do. So anything that we can do to push us into the into the algorithm for other podcast listeners and NHL fans or people wanting to get on board with the NHL as a whole, that'd be much appreciated. And yeah, just stay tuned with us. We'll have another episode on Friday, and yeah, thank you again for for being with us on the ride.
And we'll see you next time.